Hi there, and welcome to another episode of AskTom. My name's Tom Whitlock, and I'm a business development consultant for Clifton Asset Management. We're a team of financial advisors, pension specialists, and the experts behind the alternative commercial finance option known as pension-led funding. Now, in my daily job, I am tasked with speaking to business owners about how pension-led funding might work for them. As I'm sure you can imagine, and the fact that I have my own YouTube series answering questions, I get asked a lot of questions during those calls. And what I've noticed over the many years I've been here at Clifton doing this, is you see a few of the same misconceptions coming up when I speak to people for the first time. And what I'm going to hopefully do in this video is clarify those misconceptions and give you the real answers to the questions that a lot of people ask me when they come through. So without further ado, let's start with the first question. Yes, so this is actually one of the more common questions that I will be asked. People will often have a look into pension-led funding before getting in touch, as many people do now with the internet being what it is. And what they'll often see is the acronyms SIPP and SSAS a lot. They relate to two different pension vehicles. A SIPP is a self-invested personal pension, a SSAS is a small self-administered scheme. And they're the two vehicles which we ultimately use to complete a pension-led funding transaction. Now, conversely, most of the clients we work with, when they first speak to us or before they engage with us, will not have a SIPP or a SSAS in place because they're somewhat specialist pension vehicles, and far more common are standard private pensions or pensions from a previous employer, as most of our clients will have when they first speak to us. We actually cover off a little bit of this in one of the first AskTom videos we did, where I and Alan Crook went through the pension-led funding process, and we discussed some of the pension vehicles that we use and what people often start with. You can find a link to the video here. Hopefully that'll work, and you can hopefully learn a bit more about that section there. I'll now answer the second question, which is... Yes, so using the money personally is one of the more common reasons people get in touch mistakenly. As I often say, with this, if you put the same combinations of words into Google, if you're a business owner and if you're an individual of pensions and loans, you're most likely going to come to our website. Now, we do mention that this is a purely commercial option on the website, but of course not everybody is going to read that as thoroughly as some people will. So ultimately, I do have to say, that this is a purely commercial finance related product. It can't be used for personal funding requirements. It can't be used to get your spouse a new car or to put an extension on your house. It has to be for commercial reasons, and it has to have a company as the counterparty for the transaction. We actually cover this off in another one of our videos, this one with Senior Advisor Anthony Malcolm, where I talk to him about how to arrange a loan from your pension fund, and you can find a link to that video up here. Hopefully, again, that'll appear. Brilliant. Well, that's covered off two questions. Still three to go, so on to the third. Yes, another one of our more common questions I get asked is, can I use this pension-led funding to buy residential property? Very much like the answer above, or previously, should I say, you cannot use your pension fund to buy residential property. In a video that we covered off earlier, which again, I'll make sure there is a link for up here, myself and Senior Advisor Lewis Metcalf discussed ways that you can buy property using a pension, but this always has to be on a commercial basis. So we're looking at office buildings, we're looking at commercial land for development. We're not looking at your pension fund buying a two-bed detached property. Like Lewis mentions in the video, I think, he says that residential property and pensions mix together like oil and water. They can't really mix too well. And I think that's always a good approach to take when it comes to residential property purchase inquiries. But always still worth running past us just to see if we can think of any ways that we may be able to help in other ways. So, two to go. On to question 4. Yes, so I think this is possibly a result of the commercial finance market as a whole, actually, and less to do with pensions or people's understanding of the rules of pensions. And you'll find often with alternative lenders or banks that if you get in touch and ask to borrow money, the first thing many of them will say to you, if you are a new business, is, well, come back to us when you've got your first year or 2 years of accounts in place. Now, while there are startup finance providers out there, there aren't a huge amount of them, and the options aren't particularly overwhelming when it comes to arranging startup funding for businesses. Pension-led funding, however, can be used for startup businesses. Of course, it's on a case-by-case basis and very much when the cap fits. But over the years, we've helped a number of business owners start their company using funds from their pensions to make that initial investment. They've often done so as opposed to having to seek investment from a lender which is secured on their property, or potentially from an investor who would want an equity stake in the business. And often at that startup phase, that is when the equity is simply going to be the cheapest it's ever going to be in the life cycle of the company. So what we can offer is a solution which can get capital into the business, won't potentially end up with charges on property, and sees business owners keep more of their business for themselves. We actually cover off a little bit about startups in one of our more recent videos around franchises. Again, link up here. We'll make sure links for all of these are in the descriptions as well. We talk about how pensions can be used to start a franchise with, once again, Senior Advisor Lewis Metcalf. Very good video, well worth watching if that's something you're considering. Even if it's not a franchise, a lot of the same points relate to startup businesses as well. So finally, the last misconception that I deal with on a regular basis. Well, this is always going to be a subjective one. Cost is always going to be relative, and each project that we do is going to be costed up based on the component parts involved. As you may have seen, if you're a subscriber to this channel, and if you're not, maybe you'd like to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos. I cover off how some of the costs for pension-led funding are a little bit harder for us to get to on the first call. You can find a link to this video right up here. Now, it's all going to be relative, and there's going to be moving parts to each scenario that is going to make each person's idea of expensive or relatively acceptable in terms of costs are going to be different for each person. My suggestion with this is always going to be, give us a call. We're always happy to see what this is going to cost to get in place. We'll have a look at your situation, see if it works in theory, see if it works in practice, and then give you an idea of what the costs to get that set up in practice are going to be. Now, hopefully this video has been really helpful, not only for answering some of the bigger misconceptions about pension-led funding, but also for highlighting some of the content that we've got in the back catalogue here at AskTom. For now, I'll thank you very much for viewing at home. Hopefully join you for the next video. Remember to like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest content, and we'll be back soon. But until then, thank you very much for your time. All the best, stay safe, and take care. Goodbye.